Good one. Uh, so did you get some idea out of it?
Yes,
What is the idea that you get? Don't you think that it is a kind of a recall uh, or a misadventure of a childhood of the writer that
yes,
that had happened when he was 10 or 11 years old, right? And he had decided to learn to swim. And what do you find out? Means you find out there was a pool at the YMCA. YMCA means referring to the Young Men's Christian Association. That is what YMCA. And where it is in Yakima, right? So, and it was stated that the pool was nothing but very safe, right? So it was only 2 or 3 feet, 3 feet deep at the other. The drop was gradual. You can say that at the swallow end, or you talk about and 9 feet deep at the other. So the drop was gradual. You can say that he got a pair pair of water wings and went to the pool. So he you can say that he hated to walk naked into water, and so his very thin legs. So the author, you can point out, had an aversion, right? So aversion to the water when he was 3 or 4. So his father had taken him to the beach in California. So they stood together on the surf, and he found out like the how the waves knocked him down and swept over him. He was buried underwater, and his breath was gone. He was frightened, and his father was laughing. His father laughed. But the overpowering force of the waves that filled the terror. Terror in the what? Terror in the young author's heart. So that is what you would find out the author's unpleasant memories, right? Which were revived when he went to the YMCA pool for the first time. Childish, you know that childish fears were nothing but stirred, right? Childish fears were stirred, but soon he gathered confidence. He watched other boys paddling, paddling on water with their water wings. He tried to learn by copying them or imitating them. So he did this 2 or 3 times on different days. He was just beginning to feel comfortable in the water when the misadventure happened. When the misadventure happened to him. So that was stated here, right? So you can say that when he went to the pool, there was no one else, right? So he sat on the aside of the pool to wait for others. Shortly afterwards, a big boy came, a boxer you can talk about. So he was probably 18 years, as for the writer's information. He was probably 18 years old and had nothing but a beautiful muscles on his legs and arms. That is what is indicating that he physically beautiful, right? And he called the author William, right? He called the author that was called as a skinny and asked how he would like to be uh, jump in water, that called as a plunge. So the meaning of plunge is nothing but jump in water. So the boxer boy picked Douglas and threw him into the deep end. He struck water in a sitting position. Um, he swallowed water and at once went to the bottom, right? Bottom into the water. He was frightened very much at that moment, but did not lose his intelligence, wits. So wits is nothing but called as a intelligence. So you can talk about that he made a plan, right? He would make a big jump when he's a free hit the bottom. So he would come to the surface like a cork. So cork is nothing but a noun which is nothing but a plastic cup, right? So maybe the top part of any of the champagne, right? So like that. So lie flat on it and then paddle. The meaning of paddle is called as a uh, putting his legs and hands to move, or called as a shake a lot, so that to go nearby or to the edge of the pool. So those 9 feet appeared more than 90, right? Those 9 feet is called as a 9 feet distance appeared more than 90, right? Before he touched bottom, his lungs so were ready to burst. So it means something like he was about to die. So that's what he wanted to point out. He Before he touched bottom, his lungs were ready. Uh, touched bottom means what? His legs touched to the bottom. Bottom it means ground. His lungs were ready to burst. When his feet hit the bottom, he made a great jump upwards, right, or move forwards. So, but he failed to reach the surface at once. He came up slowly, his eyes and nose came out of water, but not his mouth. He moved around his legs on the surface of water. So he swallowed water, means that's something called as a gulped, and choked, means he felt like he unable to breathe. He tried. He tried to bring his legs up, but they hung as dead weights. Means he felt like what his legs were not, means making a kind of a sense. He again went down to the bottom of the pool, right? So he was shrieking, shouting loudly underwater because terror had, hold him, seized him. He was seeming like what, paralyzed. He was paralyzed underwater. But his heart and the pounding in head told him that he was still alive, right? So when you say that his heart and the pounding in heart was pounding, means breathing and making a kind of a, uh, um, motion or movement. So or called as a sound at the pounding in, you can say that head told him that he was still alive. So his heart pounding makes his head realize that he was alive, right? When he hit the bottom, he jumped with his full might. The jump made no difference. The water was still around him, right? His arms and legs would not move. He trembled with fear. So trembled means shook with fear. He tried to call for help, to call mother, but nothing happened. Then he rose up. So how could his mother would be there? His eyes and nose were almost out of water. So he sucked for, means he wanted for air and got water, right? He started going down a third time. Then all efforts ended and he relaxed. A blackness swept over his brain. So it means something like he felt like he was in a darkness, and uh, and his brain is not doing any work. So he wiped out terror. So finally he realized that he was not in a, means any kind of a danger situation. There was no more to do the panic, right? Or something like a fear. There was nothing to fear, right? So he felt drowsy. Drowsy means something like a feeling sleepy, right? And wanted to sleep. And he gave up all attempts. He forgot everything. When he came to his senses, he found himself lying on his stomach beside the pool and vomiting also, right? So the boy who had thrown him in said that, what? I was only fooling you, right? So someone said that the kid had nearly died, right? So then they took him to the locker room and he walked home after several hours, and he was weak and seeming like shaking, right? So he shook and cried. And uh, when he lay on his bed, so he could not eat that night for days. You can talk about fear was hunting him in his heart. He never went back to the pool. He feared water and avoided it whenever he could. So that's what is nothing but a kind of a fear hover on him, right? So a few years later, he came to know the waters of the cascades, right? So when you say that cascade, what do you mean by cascade? The meaning of the cascade is called as a that the water falls from the big rock areas. So he wanted to get into them. Whenever he did so, the terror that had seized him in the pool came out, right? Came out, returned. So his legs would become paralyzed. So, and you would find out that an icy horror, right, would grab his heart. So something like a chilly feel he felt. So this handicap remained with him even as time passed. Wherever or whenever or wherever he went, so the kind of a hunting fear of water followed him, uh, and it ruined his means all kind of activities, like you can talk about fishing trips, canoeing, boating. It deprived him, you can say that, of the joy of boating and swimming also, right? Deprived means he lose the charm of means doing all other kind of activities. He used every method he knew to overcome his fear. So like sometime what happened, if you win, if you want to win your fear, then you have to face the fear, right? That is what the kind of a idea you would or lesson that you must learn, and that's what you would find out in this particular topic also. He used every method he knew to overcome his fear. Finally he decided to get an instructor, right? So who would teach him and learn to swim. He went to a pool and practiced 5 days in a week, an hour each day. The instructor put a belt around him, right? A rope attached, you can say that attached to the belt, went through a pulley on the overhead cable. So it means what? So you will be hung. You will be hung because a rope was attached to the belt and went through a pulley on an overhead means cable. So he held on to the end of the rope, right? So they went on the way for many weeks, right? They went on the way for many weeks. So on each trip across the pool, a bit of panic seized seized him. So uh, even if you were once, you were binding with the rope, or knew that what all the things were attached with you for your safety, yet you would feel a kind of a fear in your mind, right? So fear of what? Fear of means droning. Each time the instructor relaxed his hold on the rope and the author went underwater. Some of the old terror returned and his legs froze. Right. It was 3 months before the tension began to slack. Then the instructor taught him to put his face underwater and exhale. So that's something called as a inhale and exhale process. Right. Inhale and exhale process. So the writer stated here that what? And to raise his nose and means to come out of the water and inhale, and to go inside the water and you can talk about exhale, right? So he repeated the exercise hundreds of times, right? Very slowly he shed some of the old panic as his head went underwater. So means he also sees the kind of a fear when he goes inside the water. Then, then the instructor held him at the side of the pool and had him kick with his legs. Right. So instructor who held him at the side of the pool, means taking towards nearby means or at the edge of the pool. And what did he do? Now he had him kick with his legs. Right. He did so for weeks. Gradually his legs relaxed. Right. Now if you do the kind of a activity or a practice, then automatically what will happen? Now you would get the kind of a means kind of a lesson out of that. Therefore, piece by piece, he built a swimmer, right? Piece by piece, he built a swimmer. When he had perfected each piece, he put them together into an integrated whole. So you cannot learn all the things means at one time. So that's what the author pointed, that if you want to learn something, then make it into part, so that learn those parts one after another, and automatically means at the end you will learn the whole, right? So that is what the means author's instructor did to him. He put them together into an integrated whole. So he had started practicing uh, in October. That is what the time. And in April, the trainer told him that he could swim. He asked the author to dive off and swim the length of the pool, right? So what did the instructor do? The instructor asked the author to jump and swim the length of the pool, right? So for means a certain feet you have to swim. He began with a crawl stroke. Crawl is called as a slowly, means putting the stroke, and he began. When he swam alone in the pool, tiny remnants of the old terror would return. But how he could rebuke his terror? Rebuke his terror is indicating that means how could he forget his terror? So, and this went on till July. He was still not satisfied, so he went to where now Lake Wentworth, right? So where that Lake Wentworth, now it was there in the New Hampshire. So he went to Lake Wentworth in New Hampshire. There he dived off a duck. Duck is nothing but a kind of a boat. So from where he jumped up at the Tricks Island, he swam 2 miles across the lake to Stampact Islands, right? So he swam the crawl, breaststroke, right? Breaststroke, side stroke. So breaststroke, side stroke, these are nothing but the different kind of a lesson of the swimming, right? So he did that. He swam the crawl, breaststroke, side stroke, and backstroke. All such kind of a stroke he did. The terror returned only once, right? When he was in the middle of the lake. At that time, he realized the terror, right? So when he was in the middle of the lake, he put his face under, and he did not see anything. But what did he find? He found bottomless water. He asked, means it's something like about when you have the kind of confidence gathered. So at the same time, even whoever it was in front of you, so you are ready to means face it. So he asked her what it could do him, what it could do to him, and means he realized that the terror was not there to him, right? So he realized that it was fled away. So some doubts still remained. So he went up the Titan to Conrad Meadows, right? So Titan to Conrad Meadow, it indicates about the place, right? From to Titan to Conrad Meadows of Washington, right? So up the Conrad Trail to Mid Glacier, Conrad Trail to Mid Glacier is nothing but indicating the kind of means land, or you can talk about mountainous area, right? He camped in the high meadow, right, by the side of warm lake. Next morning, what he did, he dived into the lake and swam across to the other shore and back. So he shouted with happiness, and Gilbert Peak returned the echo, right? Gilbert Peak is nothing but referring to the mountain, right? That means and he shouted with joy, and he means realized that the kind of echo means the same sound came back to him from the Gilbert Peak. So he realized that he had means win over, right? So he had win over what? Now his fear of water. the experience had a deeper meaning for him, right? Only those who, so what is that deeper meaning that he got? Now, only those who have known stark terror, right? Stark terror means that called as a means sharp terror, and means had the belief of what, or have the belief of what, means win over, then only you will find out that it can appreciate it. So what can appreciate it? That's something called as a means fear can appreciate it, right? So in death there is peace, right? There is terror only in the fear of death, right? So uh, so death is, so according to him, what now, death is something called as a peace, and terror only in the fear of death. So Roosevelt knew that, and Roosevelt said, so he took the name of Roosevelt. Who is Roosevelt actually? It is stated as a FDR, Franklin Delano Roosevelt, right? Was the 32 president of America, right? So he said, all we have to fear is fear itself, right? All we have to fear is fear itself, right? Douglas had experienced, right? So William Orville Douglas had experienced both the, sensation of dying, right? And the terror, that fear of it, right? That means you can talk about that sensation of dying means that called as a feeling of death and feeling of the terror. So, and that fear of means dying, or called as a fear of terror, can found when means when he started once or twice, right, doing the kind of activity, and then after that fear went away from him. So the will to live somehow grew in intensity, right? So he got the kind of passion, the desire to live, right? That's what is nothing but a means uh, filled in himself, filled in him, and that's why what happened means he means eradicated the fear, right? So he wanted to win over the fear, and that's why finally he came out of it. At last, Douglas felt liberated, so freedom from fear, right? He was free to walk the trails and climb the peaks, right? Peaks means top of the mountain, and to ignore what? Ignore fear, because now means fear could not do anything to him. So that's what the means writer stated when he was discussing about uh, the kind of experience he got from it, means from he got from his um, memory, childhood memory. That's what the poet stated. So the writer stated. If you look into that, this story is somehow taken from one of his, you can say that, what do you say that? One of his autobiographical book, right? So, and Douglas tried to do what means tried to present this extract in his particular book, and the book name is, I think, like of Men and Mountains, right? From that book only this particular extract is taken, and this extract is giving uh, one of the beautiful lesson to the readers. That is called as a means uh, if you want to win over something, right, then you have to first eradicate the fear that is drawn from that, right, that particular thing. So that is what the writer stated in this particular topic. So do you want me to go from the discussion of means line by line this particular chapter?
No,
You understood?
yes.
Okay, just a minute. Yeah. Tell me that any doubts, any query that you would like to ask.
Yes, sir.
It's 8:50.